With a two-man workout like this relative to six-man, is that a scheduling thing, or is that you guys really wanted to dig in and get to know TJ a little more intimately?
That's more of a agent, decision, like just more of the way his workout schedule worked out, and just trying to fit in, certain teams getting looks at him, and it just kind of the way it worked out for our opportunity to see him. And honestly, we understand that side of it, and any chance to get him in and get a look at him and get to know him, like, we're all for it.
Does it help in that regard, getting to, whereas instead of juggling six guys, you can kind of drill in on the two?
It's almost tougher in some ways, because you don't get to see as much live action decision making, and especially a guy like TJ, that's, his thing is so much more 5-on-5 and passing, making decisions on the fly. So to see him in more of a skill-based setting it's a little tougher to really get a feel for the player that he really is. But you get a better chance to kind of really take a long look at who he is as a development-wise and where he's at, getting ready for skill-based parts of the game that what he has to work on. Does it limit what you get to learn about him defensively even more than the offensive side, or? Yeah, as well. Same thing. Like, it's just it's not nearly as competitive of a setting to where you see a guy getting in, mixing it up and getting physical and that sort of thing. So you kind of have to look through the stained glass and picture him doing different things based on what you're seeing here, and hopefully you can get a read on it.
You mentioned shooting yesterday as sort of the one thing that from now and 5 years ago is like sort of the bigger difference in terms of what you have to emphasize, but then you mentioned, or look for, not emphasize, but then you mentioned that you drafted Pascal and Jakob last year, who don't necessarily have that. So when you draft them and you're looking for somebody's stroke who you could work with but hasn't necessarily developed that yet, like, what are you looking for? Like, what makes you think that players like that can develop that range?
I think,
or some
yeah,
sort of
just
range.
I mean, a lot of times it's they have a foundation and a starting point of just consistency, and it doesn't need to be the prettiest form every single time, but if they can repeat it over and over and over, then you can build off that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's a matter of just cleaning up a few things here and there that maybe they've never learned properly, like what the good shooters do, and if it's you just get a little bit of development time working with coaches over and over on certain aspects of the shot, like maybe that one little switch can turn him into a consistent shooter.
Is that something like happened with Norm, maybe?
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
Oh, he's a great example of just a guy who he had too many moving parts in his shot in college, and if you just streamline what he does, and then you do consistent reps over and over and over at it, this is the result, and now I think he's very comfortable as a three-point shooter, and it's one of his biggest threats.
Over the years, have you added more shooting drills because of that emphasis, or are you just it's just something you consider more in the process, but nothing's really changed in terms of this setting or yesterday's setting?
Maybe we do a little more game speed sort of shooting drills. Like, it's not so much just spot shooting over and over and over, because you try to replicate what you can in a game, and again, these aren't 5-on-5 workouts, so it's however you can replicate an actual game setting, you try to do it. So, yeah, maybe over the last few years we've kind of been, tailoring the workouts more for that sort of thing. But I wouldn't say we've really added too much of that. Yeah.
Do you notice a difference in comfort level for some guys that have had like 2 or 3 or even 4 workouts versus some of the guys that this is their first one? And do you take that into account? Yeah,
totally. I think honestly the biggest thing that comes into play with that is stamina. Guys who this is their first workout, they don't really know what to expect, and they don't properly pace themselves through the workouts. Guys who've been through a few of them, they know that when you think it's the end, there's actually probably going to be more coming, so they know what to expect, and they're just a little more ready for that. But yeah, it's totally the type of thing where as these guys go through the circuit of all the workouts, like, their bodies are going to start showing that, and they're going to feel the stress of just a treacherous month, you know, and we, especially later in the process, when we know the guys have done 8, 10 workouts, you're not seeing the true player of, you know, their legs might be a little more tired, and we absolutely take that into account. You know, you kind of, again, it's just more of getting them in here, getting to know them a little bit, and seeing what they can do with some fatigue, and you know, put them through the tests.
Sorry. When DeLon was drafted, a lot was made of his maturity and Darrell having a part in that, having watched his brother play in the NBA. With a guy like TJ, whose father not only coached but played professionally,
Yeah.
do you see, even though he's a freshman, do you see some of that in his maturity and how he approached today?
Oh, totally. I mean, you can tell just he plays the right way, like not only in this setting, but, you know, scouting him so much that when it's a decision making and team oriented basketball, like he's elite at that. Just always seems to make the right passes and finds himself in the right spot for whether it's opportune rebounds and that sort of thing. So I think a lot of that probably comes from just being around the game from such a young age, and having the I don't know, the fundamentals like kind of ingrained in him in terms of how to be an effective player when you don't always have the ball in your hand. And he's a classic example of, he doesn't need to be dominating the ball to have an impact in the game.
DJ said it was the toughest of the 3 workouts he's had. Is that, you guys happy with that sort of assessment from him? Is that what you're aiming for?
No, I mean, we're not aiming to run these guys too hard. I mean, honestly, it may be the situation of more of, I don't know how many of his workouts have been like 1-on-0 or 2-on-0 settings, to where these can be a lot more grueling because it's the same length as a 6-man workout, but he's the only guy going through the thing, so it's a little bit tougher. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, we're not trying to completely drain them, but at the same time you want them to push through the fatigue and you know, try to make it as fourth quarter realistic as possible when it gets down the stretch. And I mean, these guys, to be able to get through this workout and you know, not have as much rest time because there's not the other players that are going, like it's an attribute to like how hard they push through it. So it's good.